TV for life. Good evening and welcome to Face for the News First Team. I'm Niresh Eliatambi. I am very pleased to welcome this evening to our studio His Excellency Indra Mani Pandey, who is the Secretary General of BIMSTEC, and that is of course the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral, Technical and Economic Cooperation. Good evening and welcome to Your Excellency.
Good evening to you and thank you very much for inviting me to Face.
Right. So, Your Excellency, BIMSTEC. Now, this is an organization which is very important, and Sri Lanka was one of the founder members. But Sri Lankans at large may not know as much about it as they should. So, may I ask you to enlighten our viewers on what BIMSTEC is and a little bit about its history.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk about BIMSTEC. BIMSTEC was founded in 1997, and as you mentioned, Sri Lanka was a founding member together with India, Bangladesh and Thailand. The purpose was to have a platform where countries from South Asia and Southeast Asia could work together in meaningful cooperation in different areas identified by the member state. Later, in December 1997, Myanmar decided to join, and that is when it was named as BIMSTEC: Bangladesh, India, Myanmar, Sri Lanka and Thailand Economic Cooperation. When Nepal and Bhutan decided to join in 6 years later in 2004, then the organization was given a geographical context and it was named as Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral, Technical and Economic Cooperation. Initially, cooperation was led by the countries which held the rotating chair, but then it was felt that we needed a permanent secretariat, and it was decided to locate the permanent secretariat in Dhaka, where it started functioning in 2013. Since then, most of the cooperation has been anchored through the secretariat, and this cooperation has grown into a multifaceted, multi-sectoral cooperation. We have 16 sectors on our agenda. It was at the Colombo summit hosted by Sri Lanka in March 2022 that it was decided to make every member state lead for a group of sectors. For example, Sri Lanka has been given the responsibility to lead regional cooperation in science, technology and innovation, health and human resource development sectors. If we look at Bangladesh, it leads cooperation in trade, investment, development and blue economy sectors. Bhutan leads investment in environment and climate change and mountain economy. India leads cooperation in security, disaster management and energy. Myanmar leads cooperation in agriculture, food security, fisheries, livestock. Then if we look at Nepal, it leads basically cooperation in what we describe broadly as people-to-people sectors. So, tourism, culture, think tanks, media, youth and other aspects of engagement, sports. And finally, Thailand. Thailand leads connectivity sector in all its dimensions. So, these are the sectors on our agenda, and this is how the cooperation is structured. In every sector, we have endeavored to develop a plan of action with consensus among all the member states. There are experts groups or joint working groups who are engaged in then implementation of that plan of action. We have also endeavored to negotiate agreements, conventions in certain sectors, and we have created centers of excellence also to take forward cooperation in some sectors. So, this is the progress that we have made. We adopted our charter at Colombo Summit in 2022, and after ratification by member states, the charter came into force in May 2024. So, the summit, which was hosted by Sri Lanka in March 2022, was quite an important summit because it took very significant decisions to push forward cooperation in BIMSTEC. And our last summit, which was held in Bangkok in April 25, just 6 months ago, that summit was also very important because we not only signed agreement on maritime transport cooperation, we had our summit declaration, but we also adopted the report of eminent persons group containing recommendations on how to reform and revitalize BIMSTEC. So, if I can tell your audience, we are at the cusp of reforming and revitalizing BIMSTEC so that it can play the role which was envisaged by our leaders for it to play in order to bring our countries together in a very cooperative agenda.
So you mentioned South Asia and Southeast Asia, and of course we have SAARC, which is the South Asian region, and you have ASEAN, which is the Southeast Asian region. So BIMSTEC is in many ways an attempt to marry the two and perhaps to achieve more cooperation between these two regions. Am I correct?
Idea was precisely what you mentioned. If you recall, in 1990s, the countries in Southeast Asia were making very good economic progress, and countries from South Asia wanted to look eastward, had adopted look east policy. At the same time, because countries in South Asia were also growing, so some of the Southeast Asian countries were also keen to cooperate together. So that's why BIMSTEC was seen as an organization which will bring countries from both the regions so that they can benefit through regional cooperation and gain from experience of both ASEAN and countries in our region, which had already started growing by then, were engaged in reform and revitalization of their economies.
Right. And now, as we know, the world has a population of about 8 billion people, and of them, nearly 2 billion, 1.73 billion, I believe, are living in the BIMSTEC nations. The vast majority in India, of course, but the other countries also have very significant populations. So this is an organization which has tremendous influence over a very large population in the world.
That's very true. We represent about 22% of the global population. But also, if we look at the size of our economies, it's about $5 trillion. And if we look at the external trade of our member states, it's about $3 trillion. So we do represent a significant part of global population, global economy, and global trade. Also, if we look at our countries, we have shared challenges, and there is opportunity to work together to address some of our developmental challenges which are common to us all. And that is why regional cooperation through BIMSTEC becomes very important, because through BIMSTEC we can address some of the challenges which one country alone cannot deal with. But even more importantly, we can learn from one another's experience. We can benefit from the progress that some members have made more than other members, and collectively we can become more developed, more prosperous.
Now, let me enlighten our viewers on His Excellency's career, and it has been quite a remarkable one. He is a career diplomat of India and joined the Foreign Service of India in 1990. So it's a 35-year career, and his last assignment was as the permanent representative of India uh, to the United Nations and other international organizations in Geneva. And prior to that, he served as Additional Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, in charge of the Division of Disarmament and International Security Affairs. And His Excellency has also served as Ambassador to the Sultanate of Oman and as Deputy Ambassador of India to France and as Consul General of India at Guangzhou in China. And of course, apart from that, you have served in many other
Yes.
countries as well, representing India. So quite a distinguished career. And we're very happy to have you visit us
Thank
here
you
at
so
News
much.
First.
Thank you.
Right. Now, Your Excellency, when you look at what has taken place in South Asia, particularly with the growth of India, over the last couple of decades, it seems that BIMSTEC was in many ways a forethought of the fact that someday South Asia will come into its own and will be the focus of the world's economy, which it is rapidly becoming right now over the last few years, because the eyes of the world, economically speaking, are on India, particularly southern India. But what this means is that the Southeast Asian nations do have a remarkable opportunity through BIMSTEC to cooperate and build better relations with India and, of course, the rest of South Asia.
Yeah, the fact that countries in South Asia, India, Sri Lanka, and other countries like Bangladesh have been growing at a considerable pace, it means that they are increasingly playing a very important role in global economy and also in regional economic development. So we look at BIMSTEC as an opportunity for countries which are members of BIMSTEC to benefit from the progress that other countries have made. And that is why, in a very non-political manner, the organization remains focused on ground cooperation on the ground through capacity building, through knowledge sharing, through experience sharing, through creating institutions which can anchor cooperation in different sectors, through negotiating agreements and conventions. We would like all our member states to benefit from each other's economic strength. Now, India as a global player economically has made progress in a number of areas, has acquired leadership positions in a number of areas, and BIMSTEC presents an opportunity for other countries in the region to benefit from that progress and experience of India by engaging in cooperation through BIMSTEC framework, because the experience which India has gained, the progress that it has made, whether in domain of technology or in domain of creating infrastructure, it can be beneficial for all the member states. And that is the spirit in which our member states work.
Now, you mentioned that at the conference 6 months ago in Bangkok, certain very crucial decisions were taken with regard to BIMSTEC, especially in the sphere of revitalizing it. Would you like to expand a little bit about those steps which were agreed upon?
So, BIMSTEC, like any organization, has a set of decision making mechanisms, has a set of reporting mechanisms, and procedures have been laid out clearly. But member states have been feeling that they needed to make faster progress in regional cooperation, and it was felt that there are some institutional constraints which needed to be addressed by those who have experience of either working in regional organization or being the leading diplomat of their countries. So this eminent persons group was created with 7 eminent persons joining hands together. They met in Dhaka for 15 working days in 6 different meetings, held consultations with various stakeholders, engaged in conversations even beyond formal meetings, and then produced their comprehensive, very well analyzed report, but with focus on making a set of recommendations for member states to consider. Now, usually such reports are then debated and discussed for long and at times may not even get implemented. But in case of this particular report by our eminent persons group, the directive that Secretariat has received from the member states, that let's go full steam with implementation of the report, and those measures, those recommendations which doesn't require any further discussion, we should straight away implement them, and those recommendations which require some discussion, then Secretariat should facilitate those discussions so that they can also be implemented. So our member states are fully committed to address those institutional challenges so that we can work faster in a more efficient and effective manner. So some of the recommendations pertain to our decision making mechanisms, like taking decisions by rotation, for example, by circulation, so that we don't need to wait for the next meeting to take place. Then some of the decisions which required approval at senior levels, whether those decisions can be approved at the functional level, whether could have national focal points in all the ministries, BIMSTEC focal points, not only in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, whether we can create a national monitoring mechanism in each country to follow up on the implementation of the declarations. So the strong message that came out of the last summit, that let's focus on full and swift implementation of the decisions by our leaders. Look at all the past declarations, look at the BIMSTEC Bangkok Vision 2030, identify what steps we need to take, and let's go ahead with implementation of those steps. So that is why I think we are at cusp now, where with swift implementation of all our decisions, we can make progress at a faster pace.
Excellent, excellent. And Your Excellency, could you tell us a little bit about the BIMSTEC Secretariat, which is in Dhaka, which is the capital of Bangladesh, of course. How is it staffed, and what about the representation from each of the 7 countries?
So it's very democratic in structure. So Secretary General is appointed by member states by rotation. First Secretary General was from Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was given that special privilege to have the first Secretary General of BIMSTEC. After that, Secretary Generals have been appointed by rotation. So the second Secretary General was from Bangladesh, then from Bhutan, and now I have been nominated by India, and then my nomination was approved by all the member states. In Secretariat, apart from Secretary General, we have 7 directors from 7 member states. So which means in the Secretariat, all the member states are equally represented. Then we have what we call general supporting staff. Those staff members are mostly recruited from Bangladesh, because it makes sense to have people from Dhaka working with us, because then they are aware of local needs, requirements, and readily available. But we also have the possibility of recruiting some of our GSS category 1 staff members from other member states too, and we will do so in future. Secretariat's main role is to enable member states to have better consultation, coordination, communication with one another. We prepare for all the meetings in advance, we do all the documentation, all the reporting, and we have also started preparing background briefs and policy papers, so that our member states are better informed when they go into a meeting on what kind of decisions they need to take. So, in a nutshell, this is the role of the Secretariat.
Now, you mentioned the 16 sectors of the various activities, and this is a huge span, a huge gamut of activities, and the 7 nations each have a particular leadership role. Now, for Sri Lanka, I think you mentioned science, technology, and innovation, and certain other areas. Would you like to expand a bit on Sri Lanka's role in those particular areas?
In science and technology and innovation, there is expert group which has produced action plan, and that action plan is being implemented. There is an initiative to set up a technology transfer facility in Colombo. There we have made progress. The memorandum of association has been approved by all the member states, and as soon as we are able to sign the host country agreement, the facility can start functioning. The governing board of the facility has already been constituted. So, as soon as the host country agreement is concluded, the board will start meeting and would define the scope of the work of technology transfer facility. This is a unique institution which has been created under BIMSTEC, which will enable our member states to have access to technologies developed by the member states, so that they can benefit from the progress made in science and technology by other member states. In health, we have again made initial progress. This was a sector where the action plan was prepared for the first time in 2023. Now, in the second meeting of the expert group, that action plan will be reviewed. We have been able to attract cooperation from World Bank in health sector with Sri Lanka's leadership for a project which will assist member states in developing their capacity for pandemic preparedness and response, which is a very big challenge for our member states, as we saw during COVID pandemic, that our member states needed more capacity to deal with that challenge. In human resource development, we want to benefit from Sri Lanka's experience in skill development, in higher education, and in training, because Sri Lanka has made tremendous achievement. So has also our other member states. And again, within 2 meetings of the expert group, we have been able to develop our action plan and started its implementation. Now, there is a proposal for Sri Lanka to host the first meeting of the health ministers, and that will be subject of my discussion tomorrow with Honorable Health Minister when I would be meeting with him, because that's again an opportunity for Sri Lanka to establish its leadership in health sector and take into account the views of the health ministers and health secretaries of the member states and develop an updated action plan for future progress. So, in these sectors, Sri Lanka has made tremendous contribution, but I would like to mention that the way we have structured our cooperation, every member state makes equal contribution in all the sectors, and member states host meetings belonging to the sectors that they are not leading. For example, Sri Lanka has hosted meetings related to tourism and culture sectors, which is led by Nepal. On the other hand, Nepal has hosted meetings related to agriculture sector, which is led by Myanmar. And Myanmar recently hosted a meeting of national security advisors, a security sector which is led by India. So, it's very flexible system of cooperation, where every member state has equal opportunity to play its role and at the same time be responsible for making progress in a set of sectors.
Right. So, if we talk about some of the other sectors where Sri Lanka would have a lot of expertise, and let's take tourism, for example, which is a sector being led by Nepal. Um, is there a move for nations within BIMSTEC to enhance their tourism among the 7 countries?
That's our primary focus, because we are 1.8 billion people, and because of the cultural affinities, because of the religious affinities, people do travel from one country to other, and there is a huge potential to increase this travel. So, we have created a network of our tour operators who are looking at opportunity to create packages for different BIMSTEC member states that will attract tourists from other countries. We are looking at specific circuits also. One of the important circuit that's being discussed is Buddhist circuit, because all our 7 member states have relationship with Buddhism and have very important Buddhist sites. So, that's one important area of focus, but that will set example for looking at some other circuits based on cultural affinities and religious affinities. And we have created a tourism information center. Nepal has proposed to create a center of excellence in tourism and culture. And Sri Lanka has experience of cruise tourism, which is part of the collaboration that we are looking at under our maritime domain cooperation. The agreement on maritime transport cooperation is prioritizing tourism through cruises, and our ports conclave, which was held recently in Visakhapatnam, has also identified how we can encourage cruise tourism among our member states. And Sri Lanka would be a major beneficiary of both maritime cooperation, tourism cooperation. So, it has made its contribution and it will be a beneficiary also.
Right. So, when you were speaking, it struck me that although BIMSTEC, the meetings are at a very high level, you have heads of government, heads of state, and so on, but there's a lot of practical work being done on the ground. You gave an example of cruise tourism within the region. And that's the kind of thing which the tourism boards of each country would get involved in, and also the private sector. So, how does the private sector fit into the work of BIMSTEC?
So, I give you one example of that we have a network of tour operators. So, because tourism cannot be developed unless you have tour operators working together. Let's take another example of enhancing intra-BIMSTEC trade and investment. Now, that cannot be accomplished unless you have our business communities working together. So, that is why there is a lot of focus on convening BIMSTEC business summits and bringing our business communities together through BIMSTEC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, where we have already circulated a concept note for consideration of all the member states, and once we have their concurrence, then this chamber can be set up. So there is a focus on bringing the business communities together. In culture, there is a focus on bringing together our cultural groups and troops together in different ways. There is a focus on bringing our youth together in youth conclaves and sports. So naturally, we want to involve people in different aspects of our cooperation, because ultimately the purpose of cooperation is to benefit people of our region, people in our member states in different ways.
Right. Now, I think Nepal is leading the people-to-people contract sector, and this is very important because, as you said, 1.8 billion people live in this region. So, when you say people-to-people contract, are you talking about the highways and transport and the air transport and so on?
See, that's a connectivity bit of cooperation.
Right.
But there is a relationship, because if you need more people to people exchanges, you need to facilitate their travel, you need to enable them to move from one country to another. Otherwise, the tourism circuits won't function. So that is why when it comes to connectivity, as I mentioned to you, the maritime connectivity is very important component, and this agreement on maritime transport cooperation is intended to have more shipping links, as I said, cruise tourism, more people traveling from using the shipping links to move from one country to other. We are also negotiating a motor vehicle agreement, which will put in place the mechanisms which will be required in case people want to go through land route from one country to another. We are looking at visa facilitation to enable people to travel, and the master plan on connectivity has a strong land connectivity component. But there the approach of BIMSTEC has been to let BIMSTEC member states carry out the infrastructure projects that they need to carry out to enhance the connectivity. So it's very focused on BIMSTEC member states themselves taking the steps to enhance the connectivity across borders. So we are making progress in areas where we need to bring people together. We are putting in place mechanisms for people to come together. Last year, for the first time, we had a BIMSTEC sports championship. Now there is a plan to have BIMSTEC athletics championship, and in coming 2 years to have BIMSTEC games. So that would be a broad framework of BIMSTEC athletes and other sports person coming together as part of BIMSTEC games, like we have Asian Games and Commonwealth Games. So we have all these proposals made by our member states to enhance connectivity. Even digital connectivity is under focus. One aspect is to help one another in digital public infrastructure. The other aspect is to enhance financial connectivity, fintech, through bringing together digital payment systems of the member states. So all these proposals have not reached the stage where they are being implemented. Some of them are at the beginning, some of them are being implemented, and some of them have their action plan ready and will be implemented soon. But the direction is very clear. We are going in the direction of more cooperation and bringing our people together for more development.
Now, it struck me that out of the 7 member nations, 6 are connected by land. You could Sri Lanka is perhaps the outlier here, but the other six nations, you can drive from one side to the other, driving through all six of those nations. Of course, the highway connectivity may need a little improvement, but it is very much like the other regional blocks, isn't it? And you can envisage that perhaps sometime in the future you would have seamless connectivity. You could just get in your car and drive right across the entire region.
Absolutely. I think that's our goal, to have better connectivity, to have more people-to-people exchanges, to have more intra-BIMSTEC trade, more intra-BIMSTEC tourism. But Sri Lanka being a maritime nation doesn't mean that it's at a disadvantage. In fact, that is why, if you recall, we have first concluded agreement on maritime transport cooperation, and now we are moving towards motor vehicle agreement. So Sri Lanka is already a beneficiary of the progress that we have made in connectivity, because we have started with maritime connectivity and now we would move to land connectivity. And if we integrate the two, air connectivity, land connectivity and maritime, like we have done in our master plan, the end result will be more connectivity through multimodal links that we will have. And that is the goal, that to have our nations better connected with one another.
Right. And we hope that that will progress quite rapidly. And we are almost out of time. So my final question, Your Excellency, is now when you look at regional blocks, you see that these regional associations or blocks, they started with a few nations, and then as the years went by, they kept on adding members. The European Union, I believe, now has 27 members.
That's right.
Whereas they didn't start with even half that many. And ASEAN, of course, again started with a few member states, but has expanded. And the same with the African blocks, the various regional blocks in Africa and in South America. What about BIMSTEC? It started with 4, added a 5th member, and then 2 more, it became 7. Is there a prospect to adding a few more member states?
So I would explain to you what our charter says. So BIMSTEC charter opens the door for 2 kinds of association. One, countries and organization can become an observer at BIMSTEC, or other non-member states can apply to become members of BIMSTEC. So our charter opens that door, and then it is up to the member states to look at these opportunities in future and take a decision by consensus whether who should be admitted as a member or who should be admitted as an observer. But legally speaking, our charter opens that door for expansion of BIMSTEC with new members or with observers joining BIMSTEC in order to contribute to our goal. So that opportunity is there for future.
Excellent, excellent. And we hope that BIMSTEC will expand in the future and add many more members. And I'm afraid we're out of time. My thanks indeed to His Excellency Indra Mani Pandey, Secretary General of BIMSTEC, which is the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us this evening.
It has been a great privilege and pleasure both speaking to you and also through you speaking to distinguished people of Sri Lanka and also underline this aspect that Sri Lanka as a member of BIMSTEC has been playing very important role, and it will continue to play that role in future. And we, through BIMSTEC, collectively will be able to realize a better future for our people. So thank you very much for giving me this exceptional opportunity to talk about BIMSTEC, an organization of which Sri Lanka is a very proud member.
You're most welcome indeed, and thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away because the news is coming up next. Have a great evening.